And welcome to the show where myself, Pauline Roche, and Sweyn Hunter, and occasional guests guide you to the world of online communications in a show which was the brainchild of the late great internet evangelist John Popham. So, welcome to our special guest this week, who's Claire Bickley. Claire, how are you, and how's the weather where you are?
Thanks so much for having me, Pauline. I think wet is the best word I would use to describe it. Hard to think we were enjoying sunny barbecues just a couple of weeks ago.
What part of the world are you in, Claire?
I live in Warsaw, born and bred, so I'm
Okay.
still here. So, yeah, it's just probably, about 10 miles north of Birmingham, but definitely black country, definitely not Birmingham.
Okay. Good. And Sweyn, how are you, and how's the weather where you are?
I'm in Orkney as usual, and the weather is dreadful. It's really poor for this time of year. Looking out the window, it looks like a wet November day with a few green leaves on the trees. So, that's what it looks like here.
Well, here in Birmingham, before the show, I was telling Sweyn how much a lovely day it was, and now it's cloudy. The clouds have come down, and front and back. Front looks a bit sunnier. I saw somebody on Twitter earlier saying they had different weather in their front garden and their back garden. Wayne Murray it was, and actually, yeah, my front garden and my back garden have different weather. So anyway, we'll try not to let that affect our humor on the show. So before we get to interview our special guest, Claire Bickley, we will mark a few things. For the 24th of May, Monday, 24th of May, this was in 1844, the day when Samuel Morse tapped out, "What had God wrought?" in the world's first telegraph message. So we thought that was a good one to mark, us being all digital people.
Communications anyway, isn't it?
Communications, definitely, yes. Morse code. Have either of you learned Morse code much? Have you ever used it?
No, I haven't.
Claire's more a coding person, so maybe something you might come across. I know the SOS, but that's about it. I think most people know that one. And also on this day in 1595, the nomenclature of Leiden University Library appears, which is the first printed catalogue of an institutional library. And as you will discover, Claire, we're very fond of libraries on this show as sources of information and guidance and communications generally. So cataloguing was something I did in my earlier days. So I'm very happy to talk about catalogues of libraries. I've got a story we might get to later on about an Irish library and kind of reopening and all their stories about that. So we'll hopefully get onto that later.
Yes.
But also this month, earlier on in the month, we saw the Data for Good Festival, and we had a guest on to talk about that. And the festival Fringe events are still continuing. This week is the last week of the Fringe events. And they are, as usual, available on the website, the dataforgoodfest.org.uk Fringe events, and Sweyn is showing it on screen now. 24th of May, there's an event, "How do we use data to improve children's lives? Recovery of our children from the COVID-19 crisis." And Tuesday, 25th of May, is Introduction to Measuring the Good. And it says, during this presentation and QA session, participants will have an opportunity to find out about the Measuring the Good approach, which is a low-cost support program designed especially for small charities and non-profits. And another event on the 25th of May is Empowering Communities Using Geospatial Technology. And this is part of the TikTok Festival Show and Tells. And this event will feature 6 speakers from across the world giving snappy 7-minute presentations on how geospatial technology and data helps communities to get their voices heard, access information, and change policy decisions. So all things that we are pleased to see happening. Also this week, continuation of Data Orchard's fruitful chats about data on the 26th, and every day during office hours, DataKind UK, who organise the festival, are offering free one-to-one data advice. So very good offer there. Oh, I noticed actually one at the end, which we didn't pick up earlier. Data Talks, Census 2021 with the ONS is also an offer today. Actually, that was this morning, so the 24th, so we missed that one, but that was to talk with colleagues from the Office for National Statistics about census data. Census is very important for all decision makers, really. They need to know who's out there and what their needs are. So we do encourage people to fill in the census and then use the data that's available from that.
My cue to say, that, of course, that Scotland has delayed the census by 1 year to next year. So it's England, Wales, and I believe Northern Ireland this year and Scotland next year.
Good to know. Thanks, Sweyn. And our last mention is from one of our regular listeners, Albertina, who has sent us the link on Twitter about concerts being broadcast regularly from a church called St. Mary's in Perryvale. And they are doing regularly broadcasts, and Sweyn has it on screen now. And they're this week broadcasting on Tuesday, 25th of May, Thursday, 27th of May, and next week on Tuesday, 1st of June. And they did list the whole content of the concerts, and it's on screen now, but I couldn't possibly read out all of that. But it sounds like really interesting
Schubert, Brahms,
classical music.
Kalinikov, Haydn, Mozart, Debussy, Scriabin. Wow, lots to listen to there over this week.
I've really been enjoying BBC Classic radio over the last. Is it BBC? It's Classic Radio anyway. Over the last while, just that background of classical music has really helped me just enjoy where I am at the moment. So I do. I'm recommending it to other people. And so we come on to our special guest who's joining us today, Claire Bickley, who's the regional manager of Code Your Future. And Code Your Future is an organisation that trains refugees and disadvantaged people to become software developers. And they have bases in London, Glasgow, Northwest, West Midlands, and Rome. A UK-based non-profit that trains refugees to become web developers and helps them to find work in the tech industry. And the students are trained in full-stack web development by professional volunteers and developers from the industry, putting a strong emphasis on collaboration and product development through tech projects. And Claire herself is passionate about community, social impact, tech for good, impact measurement, inclusion, and helping others. In 2013, Claire won a Women in Radio Award. She was chosen as one of the first batch of BBC's Women in Radio and received specialist training in a range of areas to build on presenting skills. And on her LinkedIn, Claire says, ask me about volunteering opportunities, learning to code, diversity and inclusion, geeky audio things, and Battlestar Galactica. Wow. Quite a range of topics there. Welcome to the show, Claire.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I wondered if putting something silly like that on my LinkedIn would ever come back and bite me.
Today is the day.
Absolutely. People always seem surprised that we actually, look at their LinkedIn and kind of check out their profile. But if it's there, that's what it's there for, isn't it? Partly so people can check you out and see what's happening. Yeah. Claire and I have known each other for a few years now, and Claire's students have contributed articles to my newsletter, Digital WM News. So it's great to have you yourself on the program, Claire, and to hear a bit more about you. So can you tell us a bit about where you got started in kind of your technical journey and digital generally?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Pauline, for the support you've shown us for Code Your Future and for our trainees over the last couple of years. It's really great to be able to share their stories through the mediums you offer. I guess a bit about me. I very much kind of just fell into different things accidentally and just kind of ran with it a bit. I've always, I guess I always was interested in music. I grew up with music. You'll see different music things. There you go, a record player there and stuff. Just kind of throughout my life, which led me on to kind of the more technical side. So I was really interested in audio production even as a teenager. Always kind of learning different things about audio technology, music production, all things like this. I was, even kind of as a teenager going around different kind of pubs locally to see bands that I liked, and just it wasn't about a night out or anything like that. It was just about watching the music and here and there, even just kind of how the band played and how they worked together. And that's just something that's always interested me, which led me to study music tech at uni and live sound, which was a brilliant 4 years. I spent a year working in industry, working in our studios at the university. And yeah, I mean, I graduated 11 years ago now. It's a long time.
Steady.
Yeah, a long time ago. And so from that, so I graduated from uni, and I just fell into a role in local radio. They were I think they put a tiny little 100-word, not even 100-word advert in the newspaper, just saying there was, and it was very vague as well. It was just kind of said something like radio station looking for someone to answer phones. It was something like that. It was really, so I called, and it turned out to be, one of the biggest commercial radio stations in the West Midlands. It was BRMB. So I was really shocked by that and by their recruitment techniques. And they was like, oh yeah, just come along and see what's happening. And really enjoyed that. Accidentally found myself on air on the second night. And it just kind of grew from that. And I did that for a couple of years, really. And then it was very part-time. It was only kind of a few shifts a week. So I was looking for something a bit more steady. And a bit more kind of regular as well. And I saw a role that came up with a charity that supported blind and partially sighted people. But the role was to run a recording studio that did audio recordings for the blind. So that was like right up my street.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was like, right, I'll see how I get on with that. I was like some young whippersnapper coming in, supporting these people who've been doing, some of them been there 25 years running this studio. I was there, so from there I learned a lot around volunteer management and communications and things. I kind of very much brought this, these audio production skills to the team, who, brilliant as they were, that's an area that they were lacking. And I had a great manager at the time who said, this is what we wanted. We wanted these audio production skills. We can teach you volunteer management. We can teach you communications, but we can't teach you that side. And I did that for a few years, and then just kind of worked my way through different roles in that organisation. But pushed more on the volunteer management. The audio production is definitely more of a hobby for me now. Did more on the audio production. Less on the audio production, more on the volunteer management, more on the communications. Worked my way around different things, and then I saw this opportunity for Code Your Future in the West Midlands, which was it just came at the right time for me. It was a really great step in my career, and it was completely blank slate. Code Your Future didn't have any presence in West Midlands at the time. So it was a really great opportunity to build the community and mould what we wanted to mould, really, and truly like grassroots, So yeah, it's kind of led me to here today, really, So it's not so much of a nutshell, sorry, but yeah, I guess that's a bit of background.
Yeah. And tell us a bit more about Code Your Future now and how it's evolving. I mean, how many years have you been enrolled now?
Only about 18 months. It's so really, on the one hand, quite a short amount of time. And most of that has been, over the last year, I've been working remotely. Code Your Future is about 5 years old now. And it was started to support refugees and asylum seekers by giving tech skills. Coding is something that anyone can learn. You really don't need to have all this technical knowledge and have a degree in astrophysics and all this kind of stuff. It really is something that anyone can do. So our founder, Herman, very much wanted to bring those two things together and, find a way to help people. So they started in London. They then moved to Glasgow, Manchester, and West Midlands is the newest UK region, really, but also the fastest growing. We've got a lot of outcomes to meet from our funders. So we've graduated one class. Our second is graduating in July. We've just started our third one, so it's great that we keep going. And yeah, as you said earlier, we run a full stack web development bootcamp, and this is I try not to get too jargony, but if you imagine a website with moving parts, that will likely be a JavaScript website. Web apps, things like this are all built on those kind of languages. So we teach people how to do those. We also teach valuable employability skills. Mm-hmm. And where we're unique is there's lots of brilliant boot camps out there who will teach you similar things over a 12, 16-week period in quite an intense Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 full-time setting. we understand that the people that we're working with may need extra support and have other things going on. So we do it part-time over around 9 months. However, it is more of a kind of 12-month commitment because we do help people find work at the end of it as well. So yeah, that's kind of where we're unique, really. And we support, refugees and asylum seekers, but we've also been able to expand that as well to support ex-offenders, people living below the poverty line, single parents on a low income, long-term unemployed, disabled people, people with mental health concerns, the whole range of people who haven't had the opportunities to gain quality education in tech, really.
I think a lot of people do still think that tech isn't for them and that coding is very difficult, Claire. Can you explain a bit about why you think coding is, anybody can learn how to do it?
Sure. So, I see people now who are saying like, but I'm not technical. And as I said before, you really don't have to be. So many of the skills with coding are more around problem solving, and I'll always say the hardest coding language to learn is your first. And from there, it just gets easier and easier and easier because you have this foundation, these kind of fundamentals of programming that we very much teach from early on. And we try to do it in a fun way. We try to do it in like block coding, which is where it's like a drag and drop thing. We have a program where people learn how to like draw pictures, but using code. So it's really accessible to a lot of people. They're teaching code in schools now, for children as young as 5, probably. So I truly believe that it's something that anyone can do, anyone can pick up. And if it's, you don't have to be too technical, but just be willing to learn and willing to just spend a bit of time just working it out and playing with it. And it's okay to fail. It's okay to get it wrong. So much of this is where I think coding is really accessible because it's okay to fail because you just go back and try again. And it's really good for people who just want to really sit and focus and just try and get it right. And yeah, it's certain. I certainly, I know I'm biased, but I do feel it's accessible to most people.
And have you found that your students have had the connectivity and the data and the skill and the devices to be able to get online? Has there been any issues with that for you over lockdown?
Sure. I mean, this is where Code Your Future are quite unique as well, in that we can provide laptops to people who don't have laptops. We can pay for internet access if people don't have internet. We can provide funding towards childcare as well. So we really want to remove barriers as much as possible to people who want to learn to code. If people come to us and say, I really want to learn to code, but these are things in my way. I've got kids at home, or I don't have a laptop, or I need internet. We're very much kind of like, well, tell us what is getting in your way, and we will help. We've had someone inquire recently who's got kind of that they're a carer for a family member at home, and is there something we can do for that? And it's like, let's look into it. Let's see if there's something that's stopping you. Then we want to help. So yeah, definitely. I think the digital poverty gap is something that gets spoke about quite a lot in the news, in the media, particularly local in the West Midlands as well. So we really want to kind of bridge that gap as best we can. We work with a number of kind of small charities and NGOs locally who see this firsthand. I was talking to someone who said they had a client who was a refugee who was told she needed to log on to claim universal credit during lockdown, didn't have access to the internet, didn't have a laptop. How is she supposed to do this? So there is definitely more that can be done, and we're a very small piece in that. But
it's really impressive to hear of a project that is actually tackling those factors head on, as well as what you're really trying to do. I mean, I think a lot of, particularly in the past, a lot of projects have sprung up to provide things like coding or employability skills or whatever, but they kind of, unless they have addressed all these issues, then they're not going to have the impact that they need to have.
Yeah.
It's great to hear of one that really is thoroughly in that space as well, to try and ramp up to the actual content of what you want to do.
Yeah, for sure. It's quite a unique thing that we do. A lot of kind of boot camps will pay for teachers, and they will pay for additional staff and all the support and everything, and that's brilliant. Whereas we will direct our funding towards breaking down these barriers, like providing laptops and internet. And our teachers and our community is all volunteers. We've got a very, very small staff team of around 10 people. But most of our community is volunteers, which is brilliant, you know. And I very much see my role as kind of giving them the tools they need to do their job, or to do their volunteer job, as it were. So this is kind of how I got to Code Your Future, through the volunteer management side.
Yeah. So how would you go about recruiting the volunteers, Claire?
We have kind of a number of different ways, and we have a number of different volunteer opportunities. We definitely need technical people who know the code that needs teaching. So from there, we will work with different meetups locally, and we'll kind of go to those and say, hey, does anyone want to volunteer with us? This is the people you could be helping. We will go to different kind of universities as well. We find that university students, computer science students, whilst they don't have the professional experience yet, there's still definitely something they can do to help people. We'll use newsletters such as your own. We'll post on local volunteering boards as well. We'll contact all various different kind of organisations who have, people who want to volunteer. We're always looking for volunteers, so please get in touch if anyone wants to. That's kind of the technical side. On the personal development side, this is something for people who are not so technical, which is where we teach the employability skills, and we also have buddies, so volunteer buddies who meet up with trainees once a week, once a fortnight, check in, see how they're getting on, support with their employability journey as well. And this is, you don't need to be technical for that. And again, a lot of the volunteer recruitment we'll do things online. We'll do a lot of social media campaigns. We're about to launch a LinkedIn campaign to try and get some more volunteers through that. And lots of kind of different local community things, and trying to work with the different NGOs and just kind of say, is there any opportunities for working together? And volunteering is absolutely one of those.
Well, there's lots of really good information on your website, which is codeyourfuture.io, and if you go to the volunteer section, there's all sorts of information about how to volunteer and what sort of volunteers are needed as well. So I would encourage anyone listening to do that if you're interested.
So what does your typical volunteer journey look like, Claire? And do you have a typical volunteer, or are they kind of from across the spectrum?
We try to kind of offer we try to offer kind of a similar journey to all people, which is where they will come to a welcome event, which we hold every other week. Everything's online at the moment, as you can imagine, and this will just be an opportunity to get to know us. This is who we are, this is what we do, these are the opportunities available. Come and meet the community, come and meet some of our graduates, our current volunteers, and just kind of see if this is something you want to be involved in. From there, if people are interested, then I know that there's some organisations who have, one I used to work for would have kind of 2 days of induction for new volunteers. We have very much kind of stripped it back to just a short Zoom call with one of my colleagues who will kind of talk them through our volunteer agreement and things like this. And from there, it's just kind of, well, what role are you interested in? And when can we get you started? We offer a number of different trainings for the different roles that we have. So teaching, buddy training, all this kind of thing. We can offer training for anything, really, that we ask our volunteers to do. The one I forgot to mention before, was our ambassador team, who very much kind of bring more people to us and tell our story, and help with the social media team as well. So yeah, they can offer all kinds of different trainings to make sure that people have everything they need to get started. And then it's a case of you're now part of the community and come along and join us.
And do people tend to stay with you as volunteers for quite some time, or is it kind of a season, or?
I think there's a bit of a mixture, really. We've had some volunteers who have been, part of the community since we started, around 18 months or more. And then we'll have others who pop in just to teach kind of one short module for 3 or 4 weeks. And then they'll take a break. So we're quite flexible, really. If people want to, be part of our community and want to keep giving for 18 months or more, then absolutely. And if ever someone says they need a break and I'll be back in a couple of months, you've absolutely earned that. We're not going to tell you otherwise. So yeah, we're really flexible around what people's kind of timescales are. And some people will just kind of think, oh, I'll just join for a couple of weeks, I'm not going to commit too much. And then we find that they commit for a long time, which is great.
Do they tend to develop personal relationships with the students, or is it kind of just in class?
I think for the buddies particularly, for the buddies who are kind of talking to them once a week, once a fortnight, and we'll always say to the trainees, if you need help, your buddies should be your first stop, really. And so we really want to, like, building the community is so important to us. The people we support sometimes don't have those communities, so we want to be part of that for people. So we absolutely encourage people. And what we find as well is, like, this is what volunteers enjoy doing. They enjoy feeling like they can build that personal relationship, and being there for people is really important to them. So we absolutely encourage that, within the realms of professional boundaries and safeguarding, of course. I have to say that, but absolutely, we want to make sure that our trainees know that there's someone there for them.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of jobs are people getting into, and is the job market good at the moment for your trainees?
So from our first class, we've got a number of people who are now employed as software engineers. We've got a partnership with Capgemini, who have offered roles to a number of our graduates. They also bring volunteers to us as well, which is brilliant. It's a wonderful partnership that we've got. But there's a couple of people who they were struggling with some of the coding aspects. They were struggling with, kind of really getting the React and Node and some of the stuff that we do, because we do get quite in depth and we do ramp up quite a bit. But their employability skills and their personal skills have grown so much that they've now got roles as Scrum Masters. So they kind of manage the little team and make sure that they're kind of the link between the developer team and the client in many cases. So they'll work together and make sure that communication is good, team working is good. We very much kind of, like, as much as we say we're a web development course, not everyone goes on to be a web developer. Sometimes that's just that coding background can really help people with other roles and just getting their experience around product development a lot of the time. So I think the market is definitely growing in the West Midlands. There's you can look on Indeed or any other job site and put in tech, there's always going to be a few thousand jobs that come up. I think what we need to do now is look at what can we offer beyond web development. There's a lot of entry-level web developers now looking for roles, but what's the next step? What else can we do to kind of really nurture those who want to be Scrum Masters or want to go into, I don't know, DevOps, cloud engineering? I'm getting jargony now. So I think there's lots.
If you could explain what Scrum Master is, because I think not everybody in our listeners will know what that means.
Sure. So a Scrum Master, it's very kind of like tech terms and jargony, apologies, but a lot of tech companies now will follow the agile methodology of project management. There's lots of different project management stuff out there, like Prince 2 is a big one, and agile and all these things. But a lot of tech companies use what's called agile, which is where teams will work in short called sprints that might last a week, might last 2 weeks, and that's where they're kind of working hard, developing the thing, they have their goal to meet, and then at the end of it they will kind of test it out, see if there's any new iterations that are needed, and then they'll on to the next sprint. And that's kind of what's used to plan. The Scrum Master will manage those sprints and also be the link between that team and the client oftentimes. So the client, the Scrum Master might present it to the client, and the client might say, oh, a little bit more of that, a little bit, less of this or something. And then the Scrum Master will feed that back to the team so that they can iterate again and do another sprint to keep improving the product. So I'm hoping I've explained that well.
Yeah, I think so. I think I understand that. What do you think, Sweyn? Is it?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, the way I see it, I always think of a Scrum Master as somebody who protects the team who are actually doing the work of development from unwarranted intervention from outside the team, but also who, as you say, Claire, represents the team to whoever it needs to be represented to. So yeah, I think that's a very good description.
Have any of your trainees gone on to work in charities or voluntary organisations, Claire? I'm very interested, as you know, in tech, in tech for good, tech in the voluntary sector. Or have they gone into business more?
I think that's something that we would love to do more of. So we spend a lot of time on the course teaching people, how to use these coding languages, and then at the end, it all comes together into the final project, which is where they actually build something. They actually build a usable product. And what we try to do for this is we try to work with local charities and NGOs and say, is there a gap? Is there something that you don't have that we can build, and we'll build it for free? As long as you understand that these are trainees, it's going to be the first thing that they really build. We did that for our first class. We worked with Coventry Refugee and Migrant Centre. They have a social enterprise called Spring Action Cleaning, where they hire a number of refugees locally as cleaners. And they had timesheets. That was a real pain point for them. They had paper timesheets. People have to fill it in, take a picture, WhatsApp it over to someone, and then they'd input it in, and it was just a bit kind of clunky and just really not great. So they said, could you build us some kind of web app where we can input this and it automatically goes to our system, and then we know who's done what hours, and that's what we did. So we built that. We had a team of three brilliant trainees, graduates now. They had two Scrum Masters. One was actually a trainee from a previous class in London who wanted more experience. And we had a tech assistant for them as well. And so just this small team over a really short period of time were able to build this. And now it's been handed over to Coventry Refugee and Migrant Centre, and they're using it. And one of the things that we would love is if there was funding available for them or for any other organisation to hire one of our graduates to then manage that and integrate it into their systems more, or look at other things that they could build. So yeah, I think that's definitely something we would love to do. If I know that sometimes these things can seem like a really nice luxury, or certainly a developer could be a nice luxury for charities and for small organisations to have. But hopefully we can again bridge that gap, and we can help them with their needs.
Yeah, I like the description that you've given. I often get asked about by organisations, we want to build an app, and I more often than not I say to them, do you really need an app, or is there something out there already that can do the thing that you wanted to do? I do really discourage people from building apps, because I know how much upkeep it takes and maintenance and stuff. But it sounds like that was an example where there wasn't something out there that you thought would fit what they wanted. And was it something that they could then monetize themselves or go on to develop further?
I'm not sure around kind of monetizing it for themselves. That would be up to Coventry Refugee and Migrant Centre. But I definitely think there's ways that it could grow. And it could kind of, there could be other areas or other social enterprises who may want to use this. So should there be a huge demand in people wanting this kind of timekeeping app that links with their system, then yeah, we could definitely repeat that in other ways. I just think I think you're right in what you say. Like, there's no need to reinvent the wheel if there's something out there that's already doing that.
I think there's a difference between having something on your website that people can use to do stuff, and developing a kind of public-facing app that only works on a smartphone. I think from what I can see, you're more operating in the first of those territories. In other words, improving websites, putting some processes that might be clunky online for in-house use and all that sort of stuff, rather than developing little apps to be put in an app store somewhere and downloaded onto all your clients' phones.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I'll always kind of, there will be likely graduates out there who at some point go out and develop apps that people can download on their phones. But from what we're looking for when we want to work with these small organisations is, how can we fix a problem that you're having? How can we fix a real pain point that you're having that we can do in a short amount of time, and can be done with the level that our trainees are at now? These are not senior developers. They're very much entry level. They're very much in the early stage of their career. And I think as well, not to take anything away from the charities and the NGOs that we work with, but they may not understand what's actually kind of needed, and what, they can say, this is a pain point I've got, how can you fix it? But they may not understand how things will work together and how they will sit together and things. And hopefully this is where we can come in and help as well.
This is great, because in a certain sense, that's where some particularly very small organizations are vulnerable to sales tactics.
Yes.
And if there's an actor like you in the kind of marketplace or in the community around the various regions that you're in, that can only be a good thing for that sort of organization, as well as for your trainees.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, there definitely will be organisations out there who will sell the dream and will say, for £10,000 we can fix all of these kind of things for you. We know that charities don't have £10,000 sitting around, certainly not after the last year. So yeah, this is something that we would love to do more of.
Well, the thing I always think is, even if they did have £10,000 lying around, in some ways, if a small organisation has some cash around, it's even more important to get the right advice as to how to spend it, because there's so many. Well, let's not call them unscrupulous. Let's just call them overactive salespeople around selling perfect solutions to non-existent problems. That, as I say, to have a well-respected, reasonably sized organisation active now in the West Midlands and whatever else Code Your Future is active as well, as a kind of, and it's not your core mission, but as a kind of byproduct, a kind of good thing that has come out of your activity, is that there'll be lots of people out there able to spot what's actually required as opposed to what's being sold to.
Yeah, for sure. We're looking at other projects that people can do as well, and there's some that we will kind of say, actually, this is a bit beyond our scope, a bit out of scope. We've had one request for someone to add like payment details, and I wouldn't want our trainees to be liable for anything around that. So we've kind of said, let's de-scope it a bit and let's look at what we can actually offer. And so then maybe the payment stuff is something that you will pay for as an added extra to some senior developers. Maybe we can refer to a freelancer who's a volunteer or something like that. But actually, just this part we can help with.
Yes.
So we're very aware of what our trainees can and can't do as well.
That's great.
When your trainees are learning, as they have been during lockdown, obviously remotely, Claire, how have you been able to help them? Normally in a classroom situation, you'd be able to wander around the class and sort of look over their shoulder and spot where they might be having a problem. What have you managed remotely? Have there been problems that you haven't been able to solve?
Yes is the short answer. I think I was very much kind of, last February kind of thinking, it's not going to affect us. It's not going to affect us. No, it's not in the UK. It'll be fine. And then all of a sudden, we were kind of thinking, maybe we should put something in process here. I think we in some ways had quite a knee-jerk reaction, as did many other organisations. We were just like, right, okay, this has happened quite suddenly, and what can we put in place? There's going to be people now who already had limited rights and liberties, and maybe even more so now. So we really was like, right, what can we do? So we quickly set up support groups. We were offering extra support. What else do you need? There was a lot of people who didn't have headsets and webcams because they didn't think they would need them when we were starting our class. So like, right, great, get headsets and webcams out to people. People suddenly found they were needing more internet. Great, let's sort that. One of the challenges we had were people homeschooling their children whilst trying to study. So that was a challenge, trying to work out how we could do childcare. And we overcame that a bit with local bubbles. So people were able to have a bubble to support with the childcare. And again, that was something we could help with financially. And I think certainly on the team building and the employability skills, it's so hard to teach that stuff remotely. So much of what you would do would be face to face, when you do like little team building activities and things like this. So yeah, it's absolutely a challenge trying to do that remotely, but it wasn't impossible. We found that we needed kind of more from our volunteers, but that also meant we needed more volunteers. But there's a lot of people who wanted to volunteer. I think over the last year, a lot of organisations have seen their volunteering numbers go up as people have not been able to go out. So they want to do something productive with their time. And we certainly benefited from that, as did others. And just kind of, it was also like a really nice community for our volunteers. It, really break down barriers because we were all in this together. We were all going through this thing together. So it really brought people closer in many ways. People say, I may not understand what you've gone through in the past, but I understand what you're going through now, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, the stories that your students wrote for me for Digital WM News have been very, moving in some cases. They've faced great adversity in their lives, and they've come to the UK and found something that they can use to provide an income for themselves and their families, and to contribute to the community. So it's great to see, win really, because you want to support them to be coders, and they want to support their families and communities. So that's been a great achievement. I'm intrigued.
Sorry.
Go on.
I was just going to say, go back to my point earlier around how accessible coding is to people. When people come to me and they say, I can't do this, I'll always kind of say, like, everything you have gone up to now is harder than learning to code. Like, trust me, if you can go through all of this, then you can code.
Yeah, that's a good one to think about. Now I was just intrigued by the because I've worked for a European organisation in a previous life, the European Anti-Poverty Network, and we were able to travel around Europe and visit various projects and stuff. Obviously, you've got a Code Your Future project in Rome. Is that somewhere you have visited or would like to visit, or have any prospect of visiting in the future?
I'd love to go to Rome, absolutely. So we do have an international arm with Code Your Future. We've run a class in Rome and looking to get a second class running. What's missing from our Twitter, I've realised, is South Africa. We're currently running our first class in South Africa out of Cape Town. And
I can see it. I'm on the website now.
There you go. Yeah.
There, yes.
Yeah. So we're running one out of Cape Town, and we're looking to start a second one there as well. So we're definitely looking at other areas. When things open up, I'd love to just kind of go, back into Birmingham right now. That's not a miss. I never ever thought I would miss the train to Birmingham.
I've got the regions up that are on your website, and they are the West Midlands, Scotland, hooray, London, the Northwest, Rome, and Cape Town.
Yes, correct.
So
correct.
that's all.
Nice spread.
So if anyone in any of those regions, I know we have a large listenership in Cape Town and Rome. I mean, we get letters every week. If you're listening and you like the sound of what you're hearing about Code Your Future and you think that you would like to study there, then find the website, which is codeyourfuture.io, and it tells you there how to get involved.
Sorry, excuse me. Yeah,
Sorry,
great.
I seem to have done a public service announcement by accident. Sorry.
Claire, we're going to move on to just talk about some of the stories that we've been coming across during the week. So please stay with us and feel free to comment on things that we talk about. The first one is it's been there for a couple of weeks. Actually, we haven't come back to it, but it's the Amazon introducing a new Alexa helpline feature in partnership with the RNIB. And this was a story from g3ict.org.
The Global Initiative for Inclusive ICTs.
Yeah.
Promoting the rights of persons with disabilities in the digital age. So that sounds right.
Oh, that sounds like right up our street.
Right.
Yeah.
Now.
So this is a new Alexa feature connecting blind and partially sighted users in Britain with services and useful information from the Royal National Institute of Blind People. And this connects to the long-standing call center purely by voice command instead of requiring people to go online or dialing a phone. So anyone in Britain who asks Alexa to call the RNIB helpline will be patched through to the system and be able to talk to an advisor during the operating hours of 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on weekdays and 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturday. And the RNIB launched their helpline in 1997, and it's been of particular use during the COVID-19 pandemic as a way to help keep partially sighted and blind people informed and reduce loneliness and isolation during lockdowns and quarantines. They set up the COVID-19 specific services a little over a year ago, partly because many people with visual impairments had trouble using the technology that's helped to maintain connections between people using the pandemic. And RNIB research found that 54% of those with visual impairments claim it prevented them from using the internet, and 61% said they can't make use of new technology. So that sounds like a really useful piece of kit that people can use and relate to. Claire, you've had some experience with people with visual impairments. This sounds really good, doesn't it?
It does. It's an absolute blast from the past. I used to work with RNIB. There's so much that people can do now, just like from their phone using like Siri and things like this. But I remember when when I was working at that organisation and the Alexa's launched, and that was just like revolutionary. Yeah. I remember everyone just kind of saying, "You need an Alexa." We got one from my mother-in-law, and she was like, "That's my little friend. That's my little friend." Someone to talk. It really helps, not just like blind and partially sighted people, but people who live on their own, and it really helped people through isolation as well. So yeah, but RNIB are doing some great things. There's an app called Be My Eyes where you can kind of connect to someone who's sighted, and they'll show something, and RNIB brought the link between that and I can't think of the name of the company, but they do pregnancy tests. So for VI people who can't see to read the pregnancy test, they had trained people through the RNIB who would help with that, whether it was a positive or a negative.
So the camera sends the image to someone who can then describe it for the person with.
Yeah, correct. Wow. It's like a mini video call, but you're matched with like a trained volunteer,
right?
Especially if you want to kind of keep confidentiality as well. It's not something you might want to just call a family member about on WhatsApp or whatever. So yeah, it's really great innovations coming.
Because that's quite a large figure. That 54% feeling that they can't really get online properly seems a very disappointingly large figure after all these years.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's one thing to kind of say, oh, but it's so easy to do it through your phone and whatnot, but you still need to be able to know how to use it. You still need to be able to know how to do all the different swipes, or even if you don't have a phone, I'm thinking now particularly older generation who may not have a tablet or may not have a laptop or something. How are we going to ensure that they're connected as well?
Yeah,
absolutely.
We have said on the program, I think we covered that Be My Eyes previously, months back. I seem to recall it. But we do talk about using Alexa and Alexa skills and encouraging people to investigate what more they can do with Alexa. And we have a colleague, someone we interviewed previously on the show, Ben Haddock from Sandal Fab Lab, and he's doing a lot of him and Anne Scrimshaw at the lab are doing a lot of work around making AI, more accessible for students and teachers. They do a regular Tech Tuesday talk. Actually, Claire, you might be interested in, telling people what else is available. So it's worth looking into.
Absolutely.
The next story is from Talk London, london.gov.uk, about digital access for all. And we recognise that it's the capital city, and therefore there's a lot of people with digital needs in London. And the story says that as part of London's recovery from the pandemic, they're working to ensure every Londoner has fast and reliable internet access, basic digital skills, and the device or support they need to be online by 2025. And they said they've seen how damaging digital exclusion can be to people's lives during the pandemic. Work, learning, shopping, public services, and nearly all opportunities for social connection require internet access, a computer or smartphone, and the skills to use them. And the evidence they've got is that about connectivity, currently 21% of London has access to full fibre, which apparently is lower than cities in many other countries. About 95% of London has access to a copper connection from a local fibre to the cabinet point, and these connections share network capacity with others in the area, which can cause household problems connecting multiple devices or using online services that use a lot of data, like gaming or other streamed content, including Zoom, which we're on today. And data consumption, obviously, per household is increasing every year. As regards essential digital skills, at least 9% of Londoners do not possess any of the 7 foundational digital skills, including being able to open an internet browser and connect to a Wi-Fi network. And 20% of Londoners lack one or more of the foundational skills. Devices, again, a high demand for laptops to support school children and adult learners. And apparently during the crisis, over half of London's civil society organisations reported an increase in demand for digital connectivity from the people they support during COVID-19. So it's good to see that London government is looking at what they need to supply. On the screen, screen was just showing is they've got a missions-based approach, so they have targets they're trying to reach to support people and to bring together people who who need these services more than others. So they're working with the London Office for Technology and Information and trying to increase the take-up of basic digital skills training. Claire, when you were training your cohorts, did you find that people lacked any basic digital skills, or did they have to have them before they could engage on the program?
So we are very much, we'll say that we're open to complete beginners, and I've seen people kind of, as it mentions that these really foundational IT skills like opening a web browser. Yeah, we've absolutely had to help people with that. I mentioned beforehand we can help with internet support. Most of the 9 times out of 10 the ways that we do that will be through mobile data. So getting someone to switch on the hotspot on their phone and then connect to the Wi-Fi. So yes, and like really entry level kind of really basic IT skills. We've absolutely seen that we've helped with that. That was much easier to do face to face. I'm not going to lie.
Yes.
So, and I think as well, I mean, I said we offer laptops to people. The laptops that we offer out have Linux on them. They don't have Windows or
right.
So kind of that's definitely a learning curve for a lot of people.
For everyone, probably.
Yeah, exactly. So
not
definitely.
In any way, I think Linux is fantastic, and it's great to hear that that's what you do. Actually, wow, it's not a question I'd have thought to ask, but it's just great. But yeah, as you say, it's not Windows. It's different. It takes a bit of getting used to for everybody who takes the plunge. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and we're very much kind of like here's Ubuntu, here's a Linux laptop. It will be different, but see how you get on. And it's just one of those that you just have to trial and error for a lot of things and just try to get used to it.
Another thing that's happened in the last couple of weeks is the UK Consumer Digital Index 2021 was launched, and this is an index that's been compiled by Lloyds Bank over the last 6 years, looking at the behavioural data of 1 million people and interviewing over 16,000 consumers, creating the UK's largest measure of digital capability and financial behaviours. And obviously the last 12 months have been different, and this report documents how the digital landscape has changed in this time. And predictive modelling indicates 5 years progress has been made in just 1 year. Well, that's not surprising, but it's good to know. There are 1.5 million more people online, meaning 5% of the population remains digitally excluded, which is down from about 9%, I think. So it's good to know that as well. And obviously, because it comes from a bank, the report explores how the pandemic has led to consumers reevaluating their financial priorities. But I highly recommend that, and it's something I mentioned, Claire, at the West Midlands Digital Roadmap meeting that we were at the other day, and I think it'd be good for people to kind of take that on board, particularly because it does mention different things about the region. And I mean, I was delighted to see that it said about the West Midlands that as regards connectivity, our connectivity now is on a par with London, which is good to know. But as somebody else pointed out, as regards people on benefits, their digital engagement is probably the lowest of all the regions. So there are highs and lows, as there will be for many other regions. But I would do highly recommend people reading that and kind of taking in that data.
I think these claims of making 5 years progress in just 1 year, I think we have to be a bit careful about that, because what we've progressed in is in a very narrow track to replace face-to-face stuff. Now that's really important, and it's really great stuff. The more people we can get to that point, the better. But certainly experience we're having in my own organization is that we've done quite a lot of it really a bit fast and a bit slapdash, and we haven't quite shored it up with the personal support and the problem solving and the design really that we would ideally have wanted to do. Of course, if we'd done all those things, it would have taken 10 years to get anywhere. But I think there is a bit of an issue with just trying to take too much, as it were, benefit from what we've all had to do over the last year or so. There will, as things open up again, we're going to find out what all the gaps are, and we'll go back a few steps in many areas, I think, and we'll have to catch up again and make sure that the most vulnerable in society don't actually just drop off the radar again.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I don't know if it's fair to compare the last year to the to anything really. It's certainly not kind of a normal year.
Yeah, not by any means. Yeah. The next story is one that you picked up, Sweyn, about Full Fact, Africa Check and Chequeado, exploring conspiracy theories and communicating uncertainty. And Full Fact is a fact-checking organization. I think it's a charity, and they worked with international fact checkers to create a guide on how to talk to someone who may be beginning to believe in dangerous conspiracy theories. And they give this set of recommendations: that you show empathy, you avoid ridicule, you affirm critical thinking, and you use trusted sources. And again, it's something that we would like to encourage. And we understand that people, if you're not used to being online, you can believe that everything you read is truth. So it's important for all of us to remember those things. Is that the kind of thing you'd be teaching in Code Your Future as well, Claire?
Yeah, I think kind of lots of the resources that we share with around the community and stuff, we do try to make sure they're coming from a trusted source, whether that's kind of gov.uk or whatever it is. We are very careful not to give advice to people around things like this. We can inform, but we cannot advise. So yeah, I think definitely trusted sources, but it can be like for literally anything. Like a couple of years ago, my mum thought she was talking to Neil Diamond on Instagram. So honestly, there's a lot of kind of risks out there for sure.
But what I really liked about this was A, it comes from an impeccable source, Full Fact, the fact checking, and B, it's even for those of us who are more aware of these things than others, it's not always clear what to do to help other people in this area. And I think the 4 pithy little statements: show empathy, avoid ridicule, affirm critical thinking, and use trusted sources. I think that's just like, it's almost like misinformation first aid. It's very, very specific. We could all do this now that we know that those are the things to do, or the full fact things we should do. And as Simon Finch was saying, couple of weeks ago, we've all got a responsibility to do better at this stuff, whoever we are. So it's great to see a pithy and memorable way of remembering what to do. And I'm pleased to see they haven't shoehorned it into some word for an acrostic down. So
Yes.
the four
Just what it
C's
says on the tin. Yeah.
Four C's
Yeah.
of internet misinformation. No, they haven't done that. They've just given us about 10 words. So that's good.
Right. We've got two more stories that we're going to get in before we close the show today. One is from the Irish Times, talking about library reopening, and the quote is, "It's one of the last great sanctuaries." And as we say before in the program, libraries are great places to be. The journalist here says the library is a safe, secure, democratic space, not for any one category or group, a place where people can be free to meet. They don't have to spend money. They do point out about the issues about ebooks. The librarian is John Shortall from Carlow, which is in the Republic of Ireland. And they talked about in January this year, the journalists resolved not to give any more money to Amazon, discovered the ebook and audiobook service through Libraries Ireland, which is librariesireland.ie. But obviously, while a library may purchase a book and have it to lend until it wears out, ebooks are licensed on a usage basis. Undoubtedly speeded up by COVID, ebook loans have increased 103% in Ireland in the first 4 months this year compared to the same period in 2020. But as the librarian says, it's not just an Irish issue about the charges for ebooks. They can be, astronomical, and it's, I did see a story recently of somebody explaining why the charges were the way they were.
There was a Twitter thread
on capitalism.
There was a Twitter thread from an academic library explaining to students why they couldn't have ebooks because they cost like 100 or even 1,000 times more to get the licenses they needed compared to buying 15 copies of the book for the library. Yeah. So that it's as you say, it's capitalism.
It's hard to get your head around. Yeah. So as John Shortall says, it's something we discussed on a European scale, and he says the journalist says publisher actions are resulting in restrictive licensing conditions and inflated pricing. However, he goes on to say, we're living in a golden age of public libraries, and Ireland is the first country to have a national library management system, which means you have the entire catalogue at your disposal. So you can look up any book you want, and if it's on a shelf somewhere, they'll have it to you in a week. So you've gone from your local library to having 17 million books at your fingertips, which sounds brilliant. And I can testify that I've borrowed books in Carlingford in one county in Ireland and returned them to another library in Galway. And that was fine. That was absolutely fine. So, I mean, Ireland's a lot smaller, obviously, than the UK. But it's good to know that a country can have all its lending available to everybody.
Yes, Ireland's one of these sensible-sized countries right now.
And we'll finish the show with this final story, which is from Northwest Glasgow, their network IT recycling project update, and they're saying they've now handed out over 240 PC and IT packages to organizations for people in the community, and their packages come with a how-to guide and 6 months free data. And I like that story because it includes the data. A lot of other projects have just done the lending of the devices and relied on the individual getting the device then to supply the connectivity. And here they recognize that having the data and 6 months, which is a really decent package of data, gives it a chance for people to kind of do everything they want to do and then find out what they want to do next. So, so it's a nice story. They've obviously done a lot, and it's good to follow up on that. So, Claire, we didn't get around to talking about Battlestar Galactica.
No.
We might have to save that for another time. Is there anything you want to say to the fans about it before we close?
So say we all.
Great. Thanks again for coming on the show. If people want to find you online, Claire, what's the best way?
So we've mentioned the Code Your Future website before, codeyourfuture.io. We're on all the normal social medias as well, but feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, just Claire Bickley in West Midlands, and you'll find me.
Great. Well, thanks again for coming on the show, and I hope you have a great day. The weather in my back garden is now blue sky, so I might get out for a walk later on. But in the meantime, have a great week, everybody. Have a great week. Thank you.
Indeed. Bye.
Thank you so much.